15 years, the damage that load shedding has brought to this economy has been incalculable.
The death toll from the recent floods in the South African province of KwaZulu-Natal has risen to 49.
After a fairly subdued night, the Knysna fires have begun to grow again.
We begin tonight with a nation already on edge in the coronavirus pandemic as protests turn violent.
London's burning and no one seems able to bring it under control.
You're listening to Off-Grid Survival, South Africa's first prepper podcast.
And we are your hosts, Brett and Ben.
How's it been? Welcome back.
Thanks, Brett. It's good to be back.
Yeah, like we said in the last episode, we're doing a bit of a double take today. So we've just finished recording our last episode.
No, we're recording our future episode.
So we're in the future right now. Busy recording this episode. No, due to time constraints, we double tagging on this one. So we're recording 2 in one day. And we have taken time to watch a fairly new American movie. Came out in December, I believe, called Homestead.
That's December 2024.
Yes, sorry, December 2024. We're now 2025, January. So it's a pretty new movie. It is quite well produced, as movies go. No major special effects or anything like that. But essentially the story is a nuke goes off the California coast.
Dirty bomb. Yeah.
A dirty bomb by some terrorists in a fishing boat just off LA, and basically chaos descends. And it's the story of 2 main families, one with a military background, one with more of a prepper background, and how they get together in a way and work. But we'll get more into the details on that as we go along. So what we're going to do, we're going to try and break down the movie from our point of view as South African preppers. Obviously, this is an American movie. Things work differently in the States. But what we would do personally differently, or what they should maybe have done, how we think they should have done it. Obviously, neither of us are ex-military. We do have firearms training, and we know how to handle firearms, so we can discuss some of that, but not from a military point of view. The food storage side of it, that sort of thing, we'll talk about. Security side, what they could have done better, OPSEC, all of that sort of stuff. So, like I said, this was not a major budget movie. I think their budget was $5 million. It's by a studio called Angel Studios in the States, and it was billed as a prepper movie. We'll discuss how that worked out in the end. In the States, in the first month, they turned over 20 million. Not that that's really got anything to do with what we're going to talk about, but they did make a profit off it.
Yeah.
Which means that there is more of this IP coming along sooner or later. So there's quite a lot of prepper movies out there. Some of them are from the 70s, 80s, very low budget, Mad Max style, Road Warrior. This one is, what I liked about this movie overall is it's something happens and this is the immediate reaction.
Yes.
It wasn't a 10 years later, 20 years later scenario.
Yeah, like Waterworld was like
200 years later.
Guys had time to like evolve already.
Yeah. Look, I enjoyed Waterworld. I know people diss the movie. I just think it was a fun movie for me.
I dig the gills, man.
The gills. But yeah, so we're going to have a look at Homestead. Just to give an idea, filming locations on this was in Utah and California. And yeah, what other information have we got here? The lead actor is Neil McDonough, Dawn Olivier, Curie Graham, Susan Minzar, Bailey Chase, Jess Hutchin, and a whole lot more people you can go check out on their Wikipedia. Yeah, nuke goes off. Ex-Green Beret and his family moved to an eccentric prepper's fortress up in the hills. That's the gist of the movie. Yeah, your first thoughts on the movie?
Well, it starts out at sea, and it gives, the versions we watched didn't have any subtitles for the foreign language.
Yeah.
But basically, for me, it just showed that who did it was unimportant. The fact that this is a situation that happened,
Yeah.
regardless of who did it. And it was a big boom.
It is a very
But before the boom, they go into basically the backstory of some of the families and dysfunctional or not dysfunctional, prepped, not prepped.
normal teenager on his Game Boy phone, whatever it was,
Yeah.
watching TV.
I like the fact that the moment something happened, the one dad picked up the phone and went, leave now and grab the go bag and do this.
Yeah.
And it showed preparation. The fact that they kept trying to phone people instead of just sending a voice
Text
note,
message.
because they kept, and everybody who couldn't hear talked over the person that was trying to get the message through it. That's highly irritating. If a person trying to get you a message and they intermittent, don't talk over them. That's all that you might hear. And then, basically, it's all blah, 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 drama stuff. And then they get the go bag and they get in the car. Besides the mom has to go for the dog. I know we talked about animals and pets.
That they should have thought about that before getting in the car.
Yes. But I like the fact that they mentioned like Tesla's
Bioweapon function. I didn't even know about that. That was like quite cool, yeah.
But then they're like, oh, go bag, what's that type of thing? What's in it? And only then do they discover there's food and water and stuff like that, which means there was a failure in training up until that point. Even though it was thought about, the kids should have known these things.
Yeah, because I think it's the daughter asks for water. Do we have water?
Yeah.
And the mom goes, look in the bag, I don't know.
Yes.
Which means that Dad packed the bag.
Yes.
Dad knows exactly what's in the bag. Dad's not at home. He's at work in town. And they've just grabbed the bag. They don't know what's in it.
Yes.
So there's, like you said, there's none of that family training or family experience that's gone into it. Like, guys, this is a go bag. This is what it's for. This is why we put water, why we've got a first aid kit. What I also noticed is that they only had one bag.
Yeah.
They had one large duffel bag, essentially. And then they still had to scramble around and get school bags and put clothes in and that sort of thing as well.
Well, from the rest of the movie, they were super prepared.
Compared to some of the other people, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I liked, the dad just said, he saw this thing, saw it go off and all the whatever fumes or smoke or whatever, and he's just like, don't breathe there. So it's useful, information to give, especially looking at how little information is given the family up until that point.
Yes.
But he said don't breathe the air, but there weren't any dust masks, there weren't any of that type of stuff.
Yeah. So what the mom does then is she grabs blankets off the couch and just throws it over the kids' heads.
Wetted at least.
They didn't even wet them.
Yeah, but wetted at least.
Yeah. So that was what I was going to say. So you've got in this case, a radioactive agent. If there is any fallout, I don't think it would have reached them quite that soon. It takes a while for that to get to you. But any kind of, whether it would be biological or chemical or whatever, you need a barrier. And a porous cloth barrier is not going to stop that. What it'll do is it'll collect on the outside of it. So what they should have done is, like you said, wet the blankets, put the blankets on. When they get to the car, dispose of the blankets.
Yes.
Because they would have any contamination on it. The other problem is that their car was outside. They didn't have look, I don't have an internal garage with a access point, but that would be the perfect situation, is go from your house straight into your vehicle, and from your vehicle then open the garage door and go out. Then you wouldn't have to worry about stuff like that. We don't all have that option.
But I mean, in reality, he said don't breathe the air. in transport, I think it would have been more important, because if you look at the tremor at them, the tremor was enough to knock the glass off the table, but not huge, so they weren't that close.
Yeah.
And like you said, it take a while for the fallout, dust, any of that type of stuff to arrive there. But yeah, and then they jump in the car, all ready to go, and they're like, "Oh, Fido is stuck in the house. We didn't think about him." So the mom jumps back out,
exposing them all to the stuff they've just tried to potentially, not have.
The one thing that I found interesting that my eye caught with the dad driving is he grabs some pills, put in his mouth, and I thought that was iodine.
So did I.
And I was like, oh, that's
super prepared.
That's thinking ahead, eh? And then later it turns out, nope, the guy's on meds.
Yeah. Which they mention once later on, and it never comes back into the movie. But we will get to that because there's a bit of I don't want to give too many spoilers away yet. Yeah, just in case you didn't know, we're discussing the entire movie, so there will be spoilers if you haven't watched the movie yet.
Oh, didn't we say that?
No, we didn't. This is our first movie review, guys. Come on, give us a break. Then from that opening sequence of the family basically escaping LA in their Tesla, it goes to the title sequence and all of that. And then we move to
somewhere in the
Rockies, to this absolutely beautiful mansion with it's a stunning building, and you do have some more of the normal family blah 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 stuff, which doesn't really pertain to the overall story it helps with, but from a prepping point of view, it's got very little, except that they do mention that the daughter is homeschooled.
They did also say later in the movie that she had
a heart condition,
heart
transplant.
But there's no
scar.
There's no cut.
And as a person that's had a open heart surgery, yes, you have a scar, a very big scar. So yeah, that's just a continuity thing more than anything else. So at this point, the mom gets a phone call from her sister, who is the other family, or her sister-in-law, I think it is. And it's exactly what you were talking about, where they're talking over each other.
Yes.
It's like, what are you saying? What are you saying? And there's no clear communication. Dad sees it on TV, and he goes, "Oh my God."
Well, that's one of the things we learned was, if you don't have clear, you can't get out, or your battery is running low or something like that, record a message in your answering service.
Yeah.
So you say, "Hi, my battery's running low. This is where I am. This is where I'm going, and I'm going to switch my phone off now," or whatever. Yeah. So that anybody trying to get hold of you, that's the message they're going to get. And it's sitting on the network,
sits on the server,
not on your phone.
Same goes for your WhatsApp status. You can change your WhatsApp status and go, evac, heading to whatever. So anybody that looks at your WhatsApp will see your latest status. So those are definitely things to think about.
Yeah, if you had a mag WhatsApp group, you can record a message and post it to that, and everyone on it can read.
Yeah, and just remember, a text message, whether it's a SMS or WhatsApp or a Telegram, uses a lot less signal than a video or audio will use,
and it only needs a little bit to go
short
through,
time,
and then it's done.
Okay, then we go to the second main protagonist in the movie, which is the ex-Green Beret, and he's having a little bit of a hard time with life. Wife getting chickens out the chicken coop, getting eggs out the chicken coop, and he looks a bit depressed. Family stuff and ex-military and stuff like that. And then the wife and the kids leave for school, and he then gets the message. I'm gathering that they're not in LA. They're somewhere else. They're already in the Rockies, probably Colorado or somewhere like that, because they get to the mansion a lot quicker than the other people do in the movie.
Yeah, but they also switched on a lot more.
Yeah. So look, he's ex-military. He's already been contacted by the owner of Homestead.
Yeah, but they already...
to be security.
Yeah, but this was by the
Prearranged.
the looks of it, it's prearranged.
Yeah.
So when he gets hold of his mates, he's like, got a prepper, a rich guy that needs security, and they
meet up and they
and then they run convoy, which is awesome.
So
sorry, just to go back, that part where his son is cooking eggs, it's like it's so awesome because the son's trying so hard, and then they're supposed to be like sunny side up, like medium type of, and this comes out like runny,
uncooked,
broken, like scrambled eggs that, not even scrambled eggs, it's like a broken egg that has been partially scrambled, and then the barest hint of a cook around the edges.
Yeah, no, it's a shame the poor kid was trying, but yeah, he needs a little bit more practice in the kitchen. So, like I said, the wife and the kids have left. They've gone to school, or they're just literally just pulling out the driveway. He sees the explosion on TV. First thing he does is try and phone her.
Yes.
And she doesn't pick up the phone.
But you know what's irritating about that?
Yes.
Is later on you find out she was in the military.
Yeah.
Okay? So she should have been more switched on than that.
Yeah.
And she gets in a car that has a way for her phone to connect to the thing. And especially later on, that she shows all types of other way of communicating.
Yeah.
And yet she didn't pick up the phone.
The most basic form of communication. And it's not that they didn't have signal then, because they weren't in LA, so the lines weren't blocked. They're in a totally different area.
And now the soldier boy is like rushing after his family.
Literally chasing them down the street in his SUV, yeah.
And they're just driving on, and he's flashing and hooting and everything else. And they are totally
oblivious.
Till he cuts them off.
But he cuts them off in such an aggressive way. They were doing speed, dude. He comes in at a 45-degree angle, slams anchors on, and I was like, dude, if she hadn't looked up at that point, she would have driven straight into you. There's much safer ways of doing that. Yes, I know they're panicking and stuff, but yeah, bit crazy.
I think at this point he's also going like, really?
So they turn around the car, head back home, and he's now telling them to get their bug-out bags. And the one kid says, what's a bug-out bag?
Yes.
And like you said, both parents are ex-military. Okay? The oldest son is posing for Instagram shots with his dad's hatchet and his AR and, oh, but I've been hunting, man. I know how to handle a gun. He's like 15 years old.
But also, he says, we're going to go to Ross or something. And the wife's like, who's Ross?
Yeah.
It's like, if she's ex-mil and him as well, surely she would be part of that information.
That planning, yeah.
It's like, they can't be that dysfunctional that they aren't aware of what the planning is. Yeah,
so I'm not sure. It doesn't seem like they've had a lot of pre-communication in their planning. He's made plans to go into the hills, and support this, play security for this guy, but he hasn't told his wife.
Yeah,
and I think that if you were in that situation, you would have that planning.
And the kids aren't trained. I mean, they talk about the son going hunting, which is awesome, but he's old enough to have gone to the range and stuff.
Yeah,
there's obviously a bugbear between the dad and the eldest kid, so, but surely if that was, and I don't know if it's a stepdad or something.
Yeah, I think there's a foster situation going on here, because there's kids that don't blend in with the rest of the family.
Yeah, the little girl is a foster, but I think the
other two are their kids.
Yeah, and okay. But the point is, if the kid is interested in hunting and shooting, it would have been easy enough to make it.
Yeah. He's been hunting once.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then they make what I think is one of the gravest mistakes a prepper can make. And he says as much when they do it. They stop at the local shop, the local Walmart or whatever it is, and there's already looting going on. People are fighting over toilet paper, lights are going out. But then his military buddies rock up in their vehicles, full tactical gear, and the one guy just goes totally ham on a guy that's like trying to steal toilet paper from a lady and like pulls his AR on the guy. And
Yeah, but the guy, not the soldier guy, the other guy was beating the woman up.
Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah.
Now, this goes against
Yeah.
the military aspect of it, that's unacceptable. His level of force was maybe a bit much.
Bit excessive, yeah.
But I think the main characters was more upset that the guy's going a bit, bringing attention to themselves.
Yeah.
Because you can suddenly be the center of a mob
Very quickly.
interest very quickly.
So the one thing I do want to comment on there is that you're talking about being the center of attention. The main family with the head Green Beret guy, they're driving a black SUV.
Yes.
The other two vehicles that rock up with his buddies, this is like full militia kit, camoed out. These guys stand out like a sore thumb.
Well, one is a family vehicle and the other one is intimidation.
Yeah.
Not to mention I think the other one is a Humvee.
I think there's one Humvee and one's like a F350 that's been,
Yes.
or F250 that's been modded out. But what I did like is that they had e-bikes on the back of the one, as opposed to scooters. So technology has moved on quite a lot, obviously. If you've, like, a dirt bike is great for getting around, but they are hell of a noisy.
Yes.
Whereas the e-bikes that are out there now, if you've got the money to get one, they're silent.
Yeah.
And
I saw a guy on it looked like a cheap Chinese one. I actually want to find out about those because the others are just 100 odd grand.
Yeah, I was looking at them when I was in Cape Town the other day, and 150,000 rand for an e-bike.
Oh,
So in South Africa, not that much of an option. But from a preparedness point of view, having something like a bicycle, specifically a mountain style bike, something that's got good gear ratios, and an e-bike, something that can get you there with less effort, is great because you can get in and out of situations a lot faster. You can't carry as much as you can in a car, but you can get in and out of small spaces quite easily.
Yes. What I liked, just going back a bit, when the mom was getting out the car, she's like, just going to go for the essentials. And when she gets back in, she's like, no, had to get, I think, a medicine or something like that.
It was giant.
And because knowing that the kid might have an allergy or this or that or whatever it was, I wasn't paying that close attention. And it's great because if you know that you're going to, because a lot of those medicines you can't store a huge amount ahead of time.
For a long time,
they go off. So if you have that opportunity, especially before the major chaos, you knock the place, get the stuff you need, and then move on.
The one criticism I do have, and like we've spoken before, she is ex-military. That house they left had so many guns in it that it looks like they left half of them behind. She's unarmed.
Yeah.
She's going into a hostile situation because you can see at the door there's people fighting already, and she's got no defense.
Yeah.
Her husband's sitting in the car with his buddies in their cars with their weapons, but she herself has got nothing to protect herself with.
Yeah.
And if somebody had tried to attack her, what would she have done? Again, this is a movie.
Yes.
And in real life, we wouldn't, especially in South Africa, you can't really run around with guns in the open. But in the States, it is different over there.
Yeah, it's also easier to prep then, whatever. Yeah. But one thing I wanted to say was when they start driving, everyone collects at a point, and then they start driving in convoy, and they all got the correct cars. You can comment on their choice of cars and all that, but they didn't drive a little Prius that'll get stuck on stuff. A big 4x4, yes, it's flashy and blah, 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 expensive, but like when we had the 2017 fires, myself, my friend, and our two wives were driving 4 cars with families, and we ran in a convoy with comms through, and the idea was in the one place we could get through to where we were going, but there might be a barrier because sometimes there's a barrier, sometimes not.
Yeah.
And I just said to them, if there's a barrier, I'm taking the barrier out enough to clear the barrier, and then I'll leave my vehicle.
Yeah.
So I'll total my vehicle, then we'll get into the others. So having a convoy gives you more options. but also having the correct type of vehicle. So, yeah.
Yeah, so driving in convoy thing, that was good.
I like the fact that they're armed and commed.
Yeah.
They all know the channels they're going to be on. They're all able to use it. They're not worrying about cell phones and all that.
Yeah, and all of a sudden they've got these big-ass radios that just appeared out of nowhere, which is obviously, I'm assuming, in their bug-out bags.
Yeah, I think it's a bug-out vehicle.
Yeah.
The whole thing's equipped.
So then they get to the house, this mansion, and my criticism here is, firstly, the power's just gone out. There's no electricity.
Yes.
So this is a homestead that has been set up in preparation.
And no solar.
And they've got no solar.
Or generators, yeah. But I think they do cross that, and they're talking about the generator.
Yeah.
But what my takeaway was, they came up to these gates.
No security.
Fancy place. No, there's security, but fancy place, okay. Not a word was spoken. They took one look at these vehicles, even though they're armed, and they went, those are the vehicles that are supposed to come in. They opened the gates and the guys drove in, which means this was pre-arranged.
Yeah.
Which shows
they were on the phone
planning
to them beforehand.
Yeah.
And on the drive in. But it was the way they just let them in. There was no vetting. There was no
But again,
anything.
They must have known these are the vehicles, this is the number plates.
But if you watch, when they're all introducing each other themselves, they've never met.
Yes. Except the main oaks.
No, they hadn't. They still introduced themselves. And don't even get me started on the assistant
Oh, no.
to the homestead owner.
There would have been a really good compost pile.
Man, the number of errors that guy made. Yeah, and this is where we find out that the wife of the Green Beret is ex-military, because she now starts hauling out satellite phones and other equipment.
Yeah, looks like a Garmin InReach or something like that.
To get hold of the protagonist's wife's kids.
Yeah, sister and
to
family.
text them. She's going to text them with a satellite
phone. The ones in the Tesla.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's some other kids that are also trying to get back to Homestead. Then, they do a tour of the property, and it turns out that these guys don't even have perimeter fencing. It's, that's wildlife land. The government wouldn't like us if we put a fence up. Firstly, it's your property. How do you judge your border? You can't, it's literally open border policy here.
Yeah.
Anybody can just walk over.
Well, my whole thing is that soldier looks like he's thinking of the present security and future security, because he was like, why is that person down there? And the farm owner says, oh, well, it's these guys are staying there, got a
survivalist camp. Yeah.
He's like, oh, well, they got to go.
Yeah.
And yes, on one side, that was not the right thinking. I would have definitely sent somebody over to check and make sure that border is secure.
Yeah.
But they take a look at this place, and they're all military and stuff. But even though they check the area, they don't check perimeter. And that comes in later, where people are just able to cross a downed fence.
Yeah. So one thing that I would have done differently in that situation is cameras. There's not one security camera in the entire place. So, maybe it's because we're South African and we've got security cameras everywhere. I'm used to them at work and that sort of thing. You can have a person sitting in a security room watching 3-4 screens of cameras.
Yeah.
And unusual movements catch your eye very quickly. And you can have, with wireless technology nowadays, and with solar, you can have small little setups around a very large area without any cabling to your security center. You can do a very simple setup for not a lot of money.
Yeah.
And that's basic security. You could have a kid watching that, a teenager watching that in this kind of situation. This is a situation where a nuke has gone off. Anarchy is already starting.
Security systems, you can literally create an area that it picks up pixel variation.
Yeah.
And it sends an alert. Okay, so there's no reason why a guy that was that prepped he's got guns enough to equip a small army, but he doesn't have basic security.
Yeah.
And backup lighting. That's a
the
later
fact
thing.
that they're on the side of this hill, they've got no solar, not one panel in the entire property. You're prepping for the end of the world, because that's essentially what this guy has done. And yet, nothing. And quite near the beginning here of this, he actually says to the Green Beret guy, no, FEMA will come and sort everything out.
Yes.
The government will restore order. And anybody that knows anything about things like Hurricane Katrina and other big disasters that have happened in the States will know that it doesn't take them 24 hours or 48 hours to get there. Also, they're going to go to the area that's affected most first. These guys are in the Rockies.
Yes.
The bomb went off in California. FEMA's doesn't give a damn what's happening in the Rockies.
But the other side of things, you're catching the news and all that type of. The bomb going off had a cascade effect, and it knocked out the power grid.
Yes.
Okay. And now that power grid, it's not a switch that you flip on. They have to shut everything down. They have to start one generation unit up, and then start the next one, synchronize it, get everything.
It takes a lot of time.
And so, I mean, even in South Africa, I think they're talking about weeks and weeks of bringing everything back up. So it's big, and this, besides the fact that down in California, there would be all types of problems.
Yeah.
The rest of the country is knocked out. So they're experiencing their own problems. And FEMA, even if it was the most organized, advanced group in the world.
Takes time.
It would take time, and they got a huge amount of people getting hold of them for help.
And this is why we prep, because yes, you do have government agencies and non-profits that step in when emergencies happen. But if you can support yourself first, you've got a better chance of survival. And that is something that this movie does show. I will give them credit for that.
But you take the NC, it was the NC in America with the flooding and all that, the hurricanes that went through. America has got a huge amount of private pilots, helicopter and stuff. Yeah. They got a huge military support structure, emergency services, all that type of stuff. And there were people that were sitting how many days or a week or whatever without power, without anything. And another place I was watching a YouTube video, they went and helped cleared snow. The guys were snowed in.
Yeah.
Some of the people were in the house for a week, couldn't leave. Okay, and this is advanced first world country.
Yeah.
So when something happens that hits the entire US, it's going to take a while to spool up.
So if I understand America correctly, they've got three main power grids: Eastern Seaboard, Western Seaboard, and Texas. So in this, the Eastern Seaboard power grid gets knocked out because of the nuke, and Russian hackers knock out the Western Seaboard.
No, it would be the Western Seaboard.
Or West-East, the other way around, sorry.
Yeah, it's the other way around.
Yeah. Okay, so the next scene we get to is the family back in their Tesla, and they've now obviously had to drive quite a distance because I believe Tesla Model 3's got like a 500-mile range or something.
Yeah, it's long, but there's no ways they would have covered it that quickly. And secondly, why wasn't their vehicle charged?
Well,
because it was standing outside. Yeah, so they are so used to
short trips.
Yeah, so it's like people in a fuel car, and they're always under a quarter tank or tapping on empty all the time. So when they go to the full station, they put in $100 or $50 or something like that, which is basically fumes nowadays. But anyway, it's not like in the day when I was studying. It was you put in 20 cents just so that you knew you had fumes. And
but essentially what happens here is the Tesla's running out of juice. There's no power left.
Yes.
And there's no charging station. They're in the middle of what looks like farmland, and they get to a petrol station, and it's absolute chaos. There's about 20 cars, everybody fighting over that they want to be in line for the pump next.
And the people are daft enough not to recognize that the Tesla making no noise doesn't require...
Yeah, and the guy's like hitting on the side of the car. And
people are having a problem because you're jumping a queue, but you're not in the queue because your car can't run on fuel.
Yeah. So I thought that was quite funny. But it just does show that, look, electric cars are great. I think they're awesome. they definitely have their place, but you need a way, as with any vehicle, of powering it. So whether you run out of petrol or you run out of electricity, you're running out. And in this case, what they do is they steal someone else's car. And this is something I've never understood about America. People leave their keys in the car. You always see it in TV shows and movies.
But I think this scenario as well is like a person's mind is so busy on trying to get in and get some food or something like that. They're not thinking of it because they're so used to not being secure.
Yeah.
And I actually love the fact that the mom just takes a look. You can see all the conflict and she's like, come, let's get across.
She made a decision, and she made a decision quickly.
Yes.
The guy who left his car had obviously no idea what he was doing, because now he's at a random petrol station trying to get food and water. So he had no preparations, nothing. He leaves his keys in the vehicle of a fueled vehicle at a petrol station where people are fighting over petrol.
Yes. One thing that not really bugs me, but like the one kid's like, oh, but this is not our car. It's like, yes, darling, this is not our car. And
she says to him, throw some money out the window, and he just like throws a couple of notes out the window. It's absolutely hilarious.
But the point is, what have you been using the time of the trip for?
Yeah.
Now, if something like this happened and you are driving, you should be training your kids, briefing them on the situation. If something happens, we need it to happen quickly. That they shouldn't have to now explain what to do. The kids are already prepped in their minds, forewarned, forearmed.
And one thing I did notice about this family is that their car is always a mess. There's always bottles of water on the dashboard. And how do you drive like that? I can't, personally. Like, that's what under the seats are for, not on the dashboard.
Well, that's what behind the seat is for.
Yeah.
Or you throw it to the back of the SUV.
And then, so now they steal the car and they drive off into the sunset, and we get some back at Homestead, and with the people literally just putting up some barricades and taking some security advice. What gets me is that in South Africa, the barbed wire would have been up already. That would have been the first thing to go up.
Yeah. But, like this, there's work being done.
Yeah.
Okay. But the soldier's kid, okay, the eldest, he's just walking around.
Wandering
and
around.
He finds the beautiful girl in the orchard and they start talking. And she sets him to work.
Yeah.
The dad and all the other guys haven't set him to work prepping. And I mean, they're filling sandbags, they're moving sandbags, they're packing them, putting barbed wire, doing all the stuff. And
he's being a teenager.
Well, he hasn't been roped in.
Yeah.
Kids will avoid work. I mean, adults will avoid work. But when you're in that type of scenario, it's like all hands on deck. Yeah. There isn't a place for idle hands when you're in that type of scenario.
So it's a beautiful spot there. And they've got orchards. They've got everything. And the daughter says to the son, this is a way of putting away calories by making peach wine. It's a way of how people in the old days used to store. She's been trained by her father about ways of preparing food and canning, and they talk about that later.
But she didn't start then. This is how they've been living.
This is how they've been living for a long time. Yeah. Then we cut to another family. Like this must be like a week on after the event. It doesn't actually say.
No.
But they've got nothing. Their fridge is empty. They're literally like sharing a pickle between four of them, and like one piece of ramen.
I don't think this is that long after. I think it went down pretty quickly.
So they had no food in their house.
Yeah.
So they're talking about...
I mean, he is armed. He's got a baseball bat.
He's got a baseball bat, yeah. You've got to have a baseball bat. But would you go wood or metal?
Each has its benefits.
The metal one makes that lovely dong.
Yeah, but the wood one you can use to start a fire.
So these guys are also in a town in the Rockies, near to where the homestead is. Because of the electricity being shut down, there's no water. They can't use the toilets. They can't flush the toilets. And the daughter says she needs to go to the toilet. So dad says, okay, go outside. and literally goes outside with her, baseball bat over his shoulder, to tell her to go pee in a bush.
What impressed me is there's no like, oh, I can't do that. So it definitely looks like they come from a family that's a little, things are not as
Always great.
Always great,
Yeah.
and they don't have a ton of money, so they used to things a little harder.
Yeah. And then what happens is they hear a commotion in the house next door,
Somebody
and
robbing.
a gunshot goes off, and they decide, no, it's time to book it and get out of here. And I know a guy that's got a homestead up in the hills,
Yeah.
and they decide that they are now going to go to Homestead because this man's got lots of food. Because everybody knows about the homestead in the hills, apparently.
It's like leave his camping stuff, load nothing, take nothing,
Yeah.
have no value, intrinsic value with them, and then they just leave. And then the one of their neighbors goes, "Where's your gun?" You know, and it's like, how do you? Oh, no.
And he literally says to his family, this man has lots of food and lots of guns. We're going there. We'll have protection and we'll have food. Assuming because he's met the man through church or whatever it was, that he's going to automatically let him in. Which is where we get to the crux of the story, I suppose you could say.
Well, it's like you were saying that one time. You said to a person, "What you going to do?" "Oh no, we'll go stay on a farm somewhere."
Yeah.
It's like, do you know the farmer? No, but they're friendly.
Yeah.
It's like that lack of preparation is just ridiculous.
You know, in this scene, we can already see there's like, I love that scene. Sorry, I just love that scene of the police car on fire. They're using the entire inside of the police car is on fire, but none of the paint is peeling off the outside.
But also, who's taking the time to steal one tire off the police car?
And they're using it as a barricade. But it's such that there is, I think that was their CG budget, apart from the nuke that went off, and they didn't even get peeling paint coming off the side of the police car.
But I mean, people are staying in tents and all that type of stuff, and it's wonderful. But I don't know. Maybe my idea of things are just different.
Yeah.
Because everyone still has houses.
Yes.
Everyone still has all their
But
stuff.
they're all of a sudden living on the street. Then this family gets to Homestead, and there's already 20 other families trying to get in.
Yeah.
There's
all I can say is that the dude that owns the homestead's OPSEC is horrible.
Horrible. The whole town knew what he was up to. So they've got obviously a couple of ex-military guys that we said were guarding the place. What got me is these guys are on the outside of the barricade. Why are they on the outside of the barricade? Okay, if something goes wrong, you've now got to get back inside. Whereas if you posted inside, you can got a better field of view, maybe higher ground, definitely, because if you look at the layout of the place. Okay, look, I don't know whether it's a narrative thing or...
Well, I think it's a military thing, being able to control the stuff outside without letting them get to the fence, to the gate.
But the people are right up. They're literally sleeping against the guy's fence.
But yeah, that's I don't know. I don't know enough about the military to say whether that's right or wrong. What freaks me out is the next part now with the bureaucrat.
With the bureaucrat, yeah, this guy.
Man, there should be a really good compost heap in the back.
So this bureaucrat, as you said, he's a city official. He in charge of urban planning or something. Just walks up to the gate and tells him, "Oh no." But he doesn't even walk up to the soldiers, and that's what got me. The soldiers didn't stop him.
But the assistant went, "No, let him in."
Yeah, and they just let this guy walk in. And I noticed something about their gate. So earlier, when they opened the gate when there was no electricity, this time it had a magnetic lock on it. Just something.
They fixed the
power supply.
Yeah.
So you want to talk about the bureaucrat?
Oh my word! Now,
and the assistant.
It switches to the homestead owner in his bunker, looking at his stuff with all his guns and his money and everything else under the sun. And he hears voices, and he turns around and gets out of the one section, in where all his guns are, and the assistant has brought this bureaucrat in who shouldn't be there, shouldn't be allowed on the property, shouldn't have even come through the front gate. But where's the operational security or the mindset of that assistant that he allows somebody into his boss's domain
In a sanctum, essentially.
without letting anybody know ahead of time? Okay.
Yeah, give it,
No, you just
radio
say,
ahead.
as he comes in the gate, you say, okay, you here, stay here, guys, watch him, and you go fetch the boss.
You don't take him into the gun room.
Exactly. And it's like now the bureaucrat looks all around and goes, ooh, that's a lot of stuff. I like the stuff.
Yeah.
I want all this stuff for the government, in air quotes. And he wants a tally or an inventory of everything because he wants it. Pretty much like they did in wartime in Britain, where all your stuff wasn't your stuff anymore. And it's just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, and he starts quoting regulation this and regulation that. And firstly, this guy's private property.
Yes. And it's not hoarding. He bought everything.
Yeah.
He has everything there. And the world's gone to snot, and this guy is trying to push legal aspects. And then eventually the soldier boy turns around and says, why did you let him leave?
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's not going to cause any problem. It's like they could have been matching compost heap at the back, one for the bureaucrat and one for the assistant.
Yeah, it's just the way it was handled was poor. It should never have got to the point where the bureaucrat could have got into
onto the property at all.
Well, I can understand, like you said, onto the property. Okay, wait here. Let me go call.
No, but
everybody else
in America, he would have had to waive a warrant to come onto the property.
But now he got invited by the assistant, essentially.
And that obviously starts a whole bunch of stuff. At least you can say that bureaucrat kept his word because, later on.
But it's just security. I think in South Africa, we're more security aware. Again, situation dependent. You don't know what. And again, this is a movie. It's part of the narrative of the story, because this is what advances the story at this point.
Yeah. I like the fact that one of the first things comes into the soldier's mind is training.
Yeah.
Straight away. And the fact that they had stuff to train with was awesome.
Yeah.
But now after the bureaucrat was there, the soldier sees smoke, comes out, there's a barn that's burning down,
at the edge
and it
of the
says
property.
hoarders on it.
Yeah.
And that's the big thing is in a time of emergency, you've done all your prep. You've got 500,000 rolls of toilet paper, okay, and you bought every single one of them. Not one was a handout, okay?
Yeah.
So you prep from now till your grandkids die of old age. But they will call you hoarder because you got more than they think you need.
Yeah. And it's at this point that he starts talking about training and firearms. And, oh, no, everybody knows how to shoot, though. Yeah, but do they know how to react?
Yeah, and they said, paper doesn't shoot back.
Yeah. And so we go through a bit of a montage kind of scene of them training and playing laser tag in the forest and stuff like that. And essentially showing them how unprepared they are. What gets me is that this is what I found really funny. They've got military grade laser tag training equipment. Where the hell did that come from? Did these guys just have it lying around?
I think the army prep guys, they had the stuff.
Yeah, still a lot of equipment to lug around. And would you still take your training gear with?
Yes. Like pellet guns. Everybody's like, why would you need pellet guns? Training.
Yeah, okay. You have a point.
What I really liked about this, they said, okay, well, you got 12 guys. Okay, we're going to be 3. You got to take it. And then eventually they come down, they lose 6 of the guys, and eventually shoot one of the army guys.
And they think they've won.
And they call it, the guy doing the soldier boy calls it quit. And the guy's like, but the game's not finished. Like, we almost won. He says, you've just lost half of your force, and they've lost 1. And every one of half your force is friends, family, kids, relative,
It's
are
not
you willing
a
to
game.
are you willing to lose those people? I mean, it's a hang of a loss.
Yeah.
And you took down one of the...
Took down one professional soldier for 6 of your...
Yeah. It's a 50%
civilians.
loss and a third loss.
Yeah.
No.
And like I said, yeah, every person that got killed is one less person that can do a job.
Mm.
So you've lost 6 people that could plant grain, take fruit off trees. You know, it's not just a matter of...
But what if one of those people was your one doctor?
We shouldn't have been in that situation to start with, but yeah.
The one person that knows how to fix your solar or your septic tank, or, you know.
So yeah, we have the little montage scene, and I noticed at this point, okay, it is training vests, but they are wearing body armor. But Soldier Boy's wife comes out. She's not playing the game, but she's also actually wearing a vest at this point.
So they basically look like plate carriers.
Yeah, it's basic plate carriers. But if you see the wife's body armor, she was in the scene just now. She's wearing, it looks like a Kevlar, quite a close-fitting vest. Also a different color, not military camoed up like these guys.
And then
the charity scene.
Now, I understand wanting to help everybody out, okay?
Yeah.
Really, I do. But surely you think about it and discuss it with everyone first, because every single thing you're taking out of your store, you're reducing the time. And I mean, later on, the guy works it out that they had like 3 months or whatever of food for all of the people there.
Yeah.
And so everything going out reduces that time.
Yeah. So she does say that this is food that was about to go off from their pantry.
But they didn't cook it and eat it.
They just gave it.
And specifically, you know, in a normal context, I understand. But they're a family that knows how to can, that knows. So how was that stuff going off?
Yeah.
You had stuff in your pantry that you could have canned. And later on, they show how they use wheat that had already been
spoiled.
Spoiled. They went through the stuff, they cleaned it up, and they made bread. So they recycled, as it was,
yes.
kind of the.
Yeah.
And they used some of the almost spoiled wheat to start growing. And I suppose as a storyline, they showing this in the beginning, and yeah,
and it's. So basically, the wife of the homesteader gives away some of the food, causes a mini riot, and they have to like drag the family back in while people are fighting over the food.
These people being in a mob. But what freaks me out about the whole thing is, I understand they don't want these people inside, okay? And they have a whole lot of people talking about it, but not once do they take one of the soldiers, one of the people, to walk outside with a notepad and say, okay, you're a family of how many? What skills do you have?
Yeah.
What skill? So because you have a whole bunch of people at your gate drawing attention to the fact that you're not letting them in. So anybody in the area with a binos can see all these people and want to know why they're there.
Yeah. And then we get to the point where the son of Soldier Boy persuades daddy to let him go on guard duty.
And the mom's having none of it.
And and the kid runs off. And then we've got the wife and husband of Homestead busy doing this giant tally board, trying to work out how much they've got of everything and how much is going to last. I would have thought they would have had that done beforehand.
I think he's putting everything from the tablet onto the
okay,
the
he's
board.
doing a manual. Yeah. Okay.
Because he's now wanting to consolidate all his information and then work stuff out.
Okay, fair enough. So I will admit, I kind of like the setup he's got there. The big chalkboard, and it's easy visible. And on each side, he's got some really old school bow saws and hammers and axes and stuff like that. Yeah, and then
one of the things we didn't cover was in the opening scenes of the movie, and then later now, the one kid looks like she drew the explosion before the explosion happened.
So there's an element of prophecy that comes into this.
Yeah, like future seeing or whatever. So Yeah, it doesn't really play into the movie much till
Yeah. Much later, yeah.
Yeah. So
And
I don't know
yeah.
where they're going with that.
So I'll go there now and explain. This was originally billed as just a movie. They crowdfunded for this movie. If you actually watch the closing credits, it scrolls for about 5 minutes with all the people that helped fund the movie, that's awesome. You know, they managed to get $5 million together to make a movie from a couple of thousand people. This movie was only aired in the States on Angel Network, which is a Christian American network, TV network, film network.
I don't really know.
They've got their own streaming service and everything. What they've done with this is they've used the movie as the prequel to a TV series.
Okay, that would make sense.
So it's an hour and 40-minute movie, and so far apparently there are 2 episodes of the series out, and it goes to 8 episodes.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah.
I wonder if they're going to fall into the normal manufactured drama thing that all these, episodes go into, like these series.
Yeah.
They just every week have a new drama that's manufactured.
I'm not really interested in watching the series, I'll be honest. I wanted to watch this movie specifically from the preparedness standpoint. From what I understand with the series standpoint, they get more into the prophecy and religious side of things and to how the world goes. Or maybe I will watch it because the world goes a bit more SHTF.
Yeah.
Now the popo hits the fan.
Have you ever watched the Book of Eli?
Years ago. I must watch it again.
That's something we could possibly talk about.
Yeah.
That is. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway. Okay, back to La Movie. Okay, so now teenage boy is up in the hills with another kid playing God.
This is what I don't understand. Is that other guy that he's with, was he ever in the military?
No,
Does
you
he
can
know
see he's
nothing?
totally civilian.
And if that's the case, like, why haven't they split their
That's exactly
their
what I
military
thought.
force up into training the people?
Yeah. So have a experienced person with an inexperienced person. Your experienced person is a person that then takes charge in a situation if something happens. So what we're seeing here is some hunters who look very well fed with their orange vests on now in the hills, obviously looking for more food. Like if you're going to have people that are starving, have them look hungry, guys. This guy was like quite big. And these 2 kids are up in the hill now playing security guard, and they've got some pretty expensive equipment up there. A little bivvy kind of thing's been set up with a scrim net and camouflage.
But what's so fascinating for me is they got this camouflage netting sandbagged up to the eyeballs, and all this, and then they go park their electric bikes next to it on the crest of the hill.
On the crest of the hill.
Everybody can see.
With the spotting scope sticking out of the camouflage hide. That's what the hunter sees, and then proceeds to point his scoped rifle, at this reflecting spot. And this is what causes the big scene in the movie. The kids then take out a megaphone to warn them off that they're on private land, and the megaphone's batteries are dead. Was this not tested?
Yeah, but I also find that improbable. Now
And they're not that far away from the guys.
You a hunter, you cross the fence line that's obviously down, but you hear a megaphone going. Now you're trying to see what's flashing. Now, buck don't flash at you, okay? They're not that way inclined.
Wrong type of flashing.
Oh, that's true. And then you hear a megaphone, okay? You hear something loud calling at you, even if it's broken up. You don't go, huh? And then they fire a warning shot. And the guy's like, oh, I wonder if they got anything. The bullet went over their head. The crack of that rifle the bullet traveling goes over your head. You know that something's gone past you. And then the guy still, what is flashing up there? Still pointing the gun. He never puts the gun down.
Yeah, his rifle is pointed straight at the 2 kids in the hill. And the son then gets on the radio to dad and says, what do I do? You sent a kid up into the hills with no training, where you know there's armed hunters, and he's radioing, what do I do? And dad says, shoot him. Just shoot him. And he keeps saying, shoot him, shoot him, shoot him. And eventually, the kid shoots the guy.
Slightly left off target.
Yeah.
And that guy's mate books it.
Yeah.
He doesn't.
He's going to go get help,
Yeah.
apparently.
Yeah, I'm going to go get help. And he hauls.
Now you've got a kid that can barely shave, who's shot a guy. Then the next scene, they've got like a full medic golf cart with doctors at these doctors who you've never seen before. They've got a full clinic set up, and yeah, they're trying to save the guy, and everybody's crying, and it shouldn't have got to this point.
Yeah.
And
Well, there should be a quick response vehicle. So that huge 4x4 or Humvee or whatever else, if they had called in, there's these guys, okay, and they're pointing a gun, okay, lie down flat, we're on our way.
Yeah.
They got there with electric bikes. That Humvee can get there right quick and in a hurry, you know.
Yeah.
And with that show of force, they could have taken those hunters to the edge of the property, spread word, don't come close.
Yeah.
But yeah, it didn't
Instead,
happen.
shoot him, shoot him, shoot him. There was no reason for him to shoot the guy.
On the other side is, there's a guy pointing a gun at me, the scoped rifle. He doesn't say how far. Now that guy can't see.
Yeah.
Remember, they're all looking through a bino, so they look close. That guy can't see, and so the dad is hearing there's a guy pointing a gun at my kid. Yeah, shoot him.
True.
Okay. So now there was a problem with information there.
Yeah.
And because the kid didn't know any better, and the other spotter didn't know any better, you have this communication problem, and in the end, somebody died.
But that's the problem with having two untrained people on guard duty. If that had, like you said earlier, one soldier and one junior, you use it as a training exercise. It's until people are trained up enough to understand protocol.
Yeah.
And then the unfortunately the gentleman dies, and you hear the beep of the monitor that isn't even plugged onto the guy. Don't know if you noticed that. And then you have some random doctor nurse shouting at the guy, "This is your fault."
And saying that was murder.
Yeah. And every single kid in the place comes in to look at the dead guy.
Yeah, no, it's I don't think the movie also gives the proper scale. Every now and again they show you from the outside.
Yeah.
But
There's a little bit of a tent city going.
Yeah.
There's this
but also
mansion.
the land is huge.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if they show it here. Oh, outside there's a candle. Everywhere's a candle. They lit all the candles. The one place, I don't think it's now. Why is the door open?
Yeah, this is an interesting point. Somebody had obviously gone in to go get food and hadn't closed so they've got a shipping container, which has got...
No, I don't even think it's a shipping container. I think it's a bunker. It's cold storage.
Oh, okay. But the door, somebody had left the door open, and the wood rats got in and ate through all of their plastic containers and destroyed a whole...
they're flow bins full of wheat.
Yeah, and destroyed a whole lot of this wheat. You can see nearly every single one's got a hole in it.
Yeah.
Firstly, why was the door open? There's no security. There was no lock on the door. Nothing. Yeah, that was interesting. There's a lot of things in this movie that don't make sense. They don't explain enough of stuff like where the soldier boys here are. Like, have they got their own little base sort of thing? It looks like.
I dig this part where the one guy's about the lone wolf and is like, yeah, no, I'm a lone wolf and blah, blah, blah. And after he walks away, the other soldier that walks up to Soldier Boy goes,
Planet?
yeah, has he ever watched it? The lone wolf doesn't survive.
Yeah. So, yeah, the whole lone wolf thing is it's quite true. You know, being by yourself has its advantages, but you're better off in a group.
Well, especially, you know, like humans are mostly pack animals, so we do things together. A lot of the animals do like that, where wolves, they need to take down big prey together. You know, they work together. And yeah, it's just, again, some of the stuff is drama, some of it feels genuine, and other, you know,
very much for narrative
when you watch
purposes.
a movie that is like this wouldn't have happened. There's very few of those moments in this. Although the one part coming up where they light every candle on the homestead and the house is got no blackout curtains, all the lights on the outside, the worse situation in the world around you, the more muted you need to be. Because if you draw attention...
They're up on a hill, but they're like literally shining flashlights into the sky.
Yeah, but they lit candles.
Yeah.
The girl is reading in her room, okay? And she's got, I think, 4 candles on the one side of her bed, about 5 candles on the other side. The candles all the way down the porch balcony, and it's all on second story. And so it is visible
for miles.
Many. And people look at them and they go, oh, somebody's got a light.
Yeah. So now we've got the homesteaders busy discussing how they're going to survive because they don't actually have enough food. And it gets a whole lot of food montages and growing stuff. Then the kid that shot the guy, the hunter, is feeling obviously very depressed and not feeling great. And the younger kid rocks up with a puppy. Where the hell did he get a puppy from?
Probably from the homestead. And it's like, why do you say no? The puppy's already on the homestead.
That's exactly it. It didn't just wander onto the property. It's a Labrador puppy. It's beautiful. And you need to keep it and feed it and make it happy.
Yeah, and it's also one of those things that'll keep the younger kids' minds a bit occupied.
Keep them occupied, training. And a dog is always, especially a larger breed dog like that, is always good security. Beautiful panoramic shots. It's a stunning area where they filmed this. I do notice one thing whenever they do those lovely drone shots, where the house is situated is on quite a main looking tarred road that goes up into the hills, and the house is right on the road. It's not actually set back. So personally, if I was going to design from scratch, I wouldn't have my main house right on the road. Okay, then now the sister from LA
with the stolen vehicle,
the one with the stolen vehicle, rocks up at the gate and gets let in, and all the other people that are still at the gates, this is now like a week later, days later, are still there asking for food and begging for food, and they just drive straight through them.
And not one of them do anything. Not one of them go and try and get food anywhere.
Yeah.
The bald-headed oak that left in the night with his family, they said no, they'll go back and fetch the stuff. They never went back. They never
went back, yeah.
So they're literally sitting there hoping that salvation will come if the gates are open.
So, and that we'll get to that, the salvation part a bit later. Then there's a whole long scene with the daughter and the son, and this is where you find out that the daughter had a heart transplant, and there's a whole lot of other stuff going on there. Yeah, and that's one of the other things I have. There's almost a random narrator throughout the movie, the dude on the CB radio, on the shortwave radio, that's giving a bit of context to what's happening in the rest of the country, which from a narrative point of view I enjoyed, because it let you know that where they are isolated. But there are things happening in the rest of the country.
But it also showed that somebody's got a radio station broadcasting. He even said, he's going to broadcast while the government haven't closed him down. But he had to have that broadcasting. Yeah. And then everybody else had to have radios that can actually pick it up. Yeah.
So they do show a portable hand crank radio near the beginning, which has got AM, FM, and shortwave. So this guy's obviously on a ham radio or some kind of setup like that somewhere.
Yeah, but I mean, if we had that in this country, would we even get anything on shortwave?
Yeah.
From who?
I don't know. I must try. Yeah. I know Cape Talk used to transmit on shortwave as well. I don't know if they still do. I think they're only AM now.
Okay.
This is beautiful countryside, but they've got grapevines, they've got fruit trees, and then now the husband of the sister rocks up, and he stopped over in Las Vegas and had a bit of gambling.
Yeah, he just went the other way.
Yeah. And they all like lose their shit because he just, did his own thing.
But it turns out he's supposed to be on meds, and his meds ran out, so his mind took a short left.
They say to him, "Where have you been?" The guy's literally wearing a "Welcome to Las Vegas" t-shirt.
He says, no, he stopped there for a coffee and he lost track of time.
Yeah, but I just noticed now that they've even got a full-size tennis court on the property. Yeah, you can keep that for entertainment and stuff like that, but that would probably be better off used for putting some planter boxes or something and start growing.
Yeah,
long
but
term.
That said, if you're going to be doing stuff long term, there's enough property there that you don't have to use the tennis court. And if people play tennis, now obviously the initial time you're getting over stuff and settling into the rhythm, but people need a way to blow off steam.
Yeah.
Because if it's
basketball
stress all the time,
or something like that would be great, yeah. And then the brother starts talking about the FEMA trucks in Vegas, the white FEMA trucks, and how he saw them. And when Soldier Boy starts questioning him a bit deeper, he can't remember anything.
Yeah, it turns out he just saw a sign. He didn't see them.
He didn't actually see them. And here's your bread baking scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, where all the wheat that got spoiled by the rats, they make like 100 loaves, and I think this is meant to be a biblical reference. That's why they went with 100 loaves.
Okay.
The loaves and the fishes.
Well, I mean, the loaves and fishes was more, but about basically multiplying what they had, because the stuff was going to be spoiled anyway, so they did all the stuff and have an abundance that they can. So I don't see how that actually works, but I understand what she's trying to say.
So they basically start giving out all this basic freshly baked bread to the people at the front gate. And the next thing, they've got like a full-on soup kitchen going there. And the next thing, there's 2 white box trucks and a black Humvee with SWAT written on the side, pulls up at the gate at high speed with all these people outside the gate. And half the soldiers outside the gate.
Again. Yeah, but immediately they give some ammo to that 50 cal.
Yeah.
And
or the Browning,
Yeah, they hunker down. They got a good firing line.
And here comes Mr. Bureaucrat, your favorite prick.
Now, I have to give the SWAT guys
some credit.
Yeah, because they look at the system thing and they're trying to de-escalate. Everybody's trying to de-escalate, and the bureaucrat keeps trying to escalate constantly to the point where...
And the SWAT guys and stuff were bringing it down. And then the bureaucrat pulls out his megaphone and starts shouting the odds.
Yeah, they're faced with severe firepower, and the SWAT guy's like, this is not a good idea, and the bureaucrat's too...
Up his own...
Well, that's one way of putting it. To actually figure out that you're on the losing side.
Yeah, and he gets told to get off the property, and he pulls out a revolver.
Yeah, at this point, if I was a SWAT guy, I would have...
taken him down.
Ended that thing quickly. So the bureaucrat has this complex where he thinks he's right and he can do what he wants to.
Yeah.
Ooh, that machine gun, the soldier boy fires over all the vehicles, doesn't aim at the vehicles, he fires over all the vehicles.
Everybody's heads, yeah.
And basically, get your head down, it's a show of might.
Yeah.
And Homestead owner falls to the floor, bullet hole, leaking.
From the bureaucrat with the revolver, and one of the SWAT guys got shot as well, yeah.
But you can see it was... What they portray is very well-trained soldiers, special forces guys, because they don't go... Even the SWAT guys, they don't go into a huge problem. One of the SWAT guys takes a round.
They pull him out, they keep cover, they're backing each other up, they're doing...
But I think now the SWAT has... guys have looked in and go like, wait, we're deeper in this than that we want to be. Yeah.
And this is where we get to a bit of the crux of the movie, and where, for me personally, it got a little bit improbable. I suppose improbable is the wrong word. So the Homestead has been shot. He is unconscious. they move everybody back inside, and it goes to voiceover from the homesteader's wife. And basically the next 10 minutes, the last 10 minutes of the movie, or 50 minutes of the movie, is from, all of a sudden, from her point of view.
Yes.
It has been a bit from her point of view. In the beginning there was, she also did a bit of VO, but she basically she's now the leader of what's happening here because her husband is unconscious. And I think at one point they say that he was unconscious for a week. He was in a coma for a week from being shot. And she basically spent the entire night at his side, the first night, praying and asking God what she needs to do. And she had literally a revelation. And that revelation was to go down and open the gates and let everybody in. There was no consultation with anybody else living on the property. Admittedly, she is technically the owner of the property, but 30 days later, he was unconscious for a month.
No, 30 days since blackout.
30 days since blackout.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
So they've been outside of the gate for a while.
Yeah. So she let everybody in. And she actually ended up doing what should have been done in the first place. But the reasoning of the movie for me is wrong. If they had said, like you said earlier, get a list of the people, find out what their skills are, how can we help, what can you use to help, and build a community that way, that's one way of doing it. Instead, what they ended up having throughout the whole movie was a standoff that eventually came to gunfire, and then they're using religion as a reason for letting the people in.
What I took from it is, yes, she's letting them in because of her belief, okay?
Yeah.
So she believes that being charitable is better than... So you basically choose how you want to live. And the one thing that they said there, she said was, there is life, then there is life worth living.
Yeah.
And so her choice was she would rather have a life worth living with people, all the friends that they normally have, and instead of just surviving.
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree with you there.
But she got to that process through her belief
faith,
system. Yeah. So, and then they looked at, because they had now more minds, more
they were able to
experience,
solve a lot more problems.
all the things that they thought were huge problems, they could solve because they had other people's in.
Which works from a narrative point of view. It works from a storytelling perspective. But like we were talking, in a real world situation, what would be the better option?
Well, who's standing outside the gate?
Nobody anymore.
No, but the thing is, at the moment, the people, well, before now, the people standing at the gate were the friends.
Yeah.
So they knew all these people. But it's a romanticized version of it, because
in real life,
not necessarily in life it would have gone wrong, but in real life, or that's not part of the story, at any stage you could wake up dead because the person you let in had an ulterior motive or was undercover or something like that. But I understand why they did the story this way, and it makes it a good feeling story, and
definitely,
allows people to hope that there's more. There's more to this life than just trying to protect myself all the time. Possibly there's a greater, somebody higher than us that has a say. Otherwise, people will get despondent,
disillusioned, and despondent very quickly.
I think it plays well into the movie. Now we're looking at parts of whatever comes after.
Yeah.
And I don't know how well it's going to play into the series part of things.
It'll be interesting to see. If we can get hold of it, we'll try and watch them. But whether we'll be able to get the episodes, I'm not sure.
Because, a lot of these movies, like they're a rom-com type stuff or whatever, you have it, and the grand gesture, all this type of thing, they happily ever after, which lasts for a few months, years, whatever else. They never show the having to go through the tough times. Now, maybe the series shows you the tough times.
So what we just learned now at the end of the movie is that is the first 30 days since the attack.
Yes.
So basically, we've covered 1 month. I'm assuming this series, like you say, is going to show the next 30, 60, 90 days, which will be interesting. So I don't want you to get me wrong about the religious aspect. I'm not used to seeing that kind of thing in movies. I think faith definitely has a place in preparation. Don't get me wrong. And everybody has their own personal faith, whether you're Christian, Buddhist, Hindu, Muslim, agnostic, whatever's your flavor.
Yes.
That's up to you. And how you use that in your preparation is important.
Yes.
Whether you use it as your moral compass, which is what she essentially used it in the movie. She decided that her faith was saying that she needs to let people in and bring people into her to help them. Very noble. And I've got nothing against that. It just was a bit jarring from you've got 130 minutes of military and 10 minutes of, oh no, Jesus said I must do it. From a narrative point of view, I just found that a bit strange.
Now, if you remove the possibility of a higher power out of it, if what she experienced was real, there would be a thing swinging the whole scenario one way. But let's say remove that and say, okay, she now made a bet, whether she imagined it or not, whatever. She's making a bet that things are going to work out right. We don't see in this movie whether that transpires. Okay. Now, if you take like the Book of Eli or Jericho, it is years after the fact. Society has devolved and evolved, and you're now sitting in the middle of the stuff. It'll be interesting to see where they go and how they get to that point, because they've set this premise, and if they follow on truthfully from the premise they've set now and show how it works, it'll be interesting to see.
I would love to see where they go with this narrative arc.
Yes.
Because they could go either way with it. They could go love and light, or it can go quite dark. And if you watch right to the end of the movie, it looks like there's some pretty dark stuff that does happen. So
the human nature ranges all the way through. And so the more people you have in, the wider the range of.
So my final impressions of the movie: the filmography, the photography, the shooting, well done. Beautiful drone shots, very little special effects. Like I said, the police car on fire and the nuclear explosion was pretty the extent of the effects. They showed a lot of basic preparedness stuff without going into too much detail. It wasn't a lecture about being prepared. But they showed enough for people that are curious to go, what is a go bag? What is a bug out bag? What is the advantage of having an electric car over a petrol car? It allows people to ask questions about preparedness. The homesteading setup, they touched on a lot of subjects. The rats getting into the wheat. Why was the wheat in plastic and not in metal drums? That sort of thing. It's things that, as preppers, we think about on a fairly regular basis. But for the average person who's maybe watching this for the first time and has never even really thought of prepping, will go, oh, okay, that's interesting. I wonder why they did that. From a South African point of view, watching an American movie, man, I wish we had those guns. You're not going to walk into someone's house, or very few houses in South Africa, and it's just going to be wall-to-ceiling AR-15s and handguns and Browning submachine guns, which even in the States, there's very few states that you can actually own those. But, a lot to think about. Narrative-wise, it wasn't too bad. But I'd be curious to see where they go with the arc. Overall, out of 10... from a preparedness point of view, I'd give it a 6.5.
You mean the Homesteader?
As a general movie, like showing different aspects of things.
Yeah, I might go a little lower than that. I like the fact that they had planned this ahead of time. They already knew where and whatever. They also showed the people that had no prep. It's the locusts. They didn't think ahead. All the ants have been planning, but now the locusts want to join the. Now, from a help your fellow man type of thing and all that type of stuff, those are the people you need to help. Okay, but I'll come back to that. What I did in my notes here, I said I liked the pivot in the movie, and that they aligned with my thoughts on change. Okay, the irritation for me: rich man, lots of guns, tons of money spent on his property, no solar panels, no thought process.
Yeah.
And what I said when I was watching this with my wife, they said, "Oh no, the seed potatoes won't last through winter." I'm like, just put a heater in the greenhouse and do this, and you do this and do this.
Which is exactly what they ended up doing in the movie.
Exactly. Okay. And now that's what really made me like the movie was after they decided to stop being focused on only them and start getting more knowledge. Okay. They found a person that could put solar panels together. They found a person that knew about chimneys and heating. They found a person that did this and that. And so suddenly you have a broader base of knowledge. And once you can teach that across, you have a stronger community. So say for argument's sake, there was no one left in America. Yeah. And you only had that community. You would have more than just the original. Because the original lot was Soldier Boy, new guns. Okay, his family don't know guns, don't know anything else. Okay, the mother knows comms. The other family is a mom, didn't even know what a go bag was. She was willing to save her family by swapping a car. The homesteader, he was homesteading out the eyeballs, but
knew nothing about security.
Ton of stuff that he didn't know about. Yeah. Okay, but he did prep enough so that when the security guys arrived, he had the hardware.
Yeah. So on that point, yes, rich guy, everything. What would have made the situation better is have it set up as a MAG. They're a mutual assistance group. Have those people come up there before time. Don't go, oh, if there's an emergency, come here and look after me. No, you have them come up beforehand and go, okay, you need to look at this in the future. This is what you can do. He's already got his entire plantations planted and all the food and everything, but no, not looking at the broader picture.
True. But now imagine how many people would have been in the front gate if each one of those friends knew exactly what he had there. And that'd been because they would have told their friends, oh no, if it's ever you come to me, I'll make sure you get on there. And suddenly you have a city instead of a homestead. Yeah. But the other thing that the one thing that bugged me a bit is they left all the cars there. Okay, take a few cars down the road somewhere, burn them out,
block the road off.
Yeah, just burn them out. Make it look like it's a bad area to come into.
Yeah,
that type of stuff. Make yourself as invisible as you can while you're living in a giant mansion
on the side of a hill
with all the candles burning. But I did like that pivot at the end where they actually, whether you agree with why they let the people in or not, okay, even from a pragmatic point of view, you should have gone through those people and found out what their skill set is. Yeah. And the other thing is, there should be no one on the property that isn't working one or two positions.
Everybody should have a job, even the kids, whether it's fetching water or planting potatoes.
But now you watch these other movies or series about aliens attacking in the end of the world, and they're like, oh no, we're civilians, the military guys must go fight. No, dude, it's more like the Israeli thing. Everybody, male and female, go do military service and training. Whether you ever need to apply it is immaterial. You learn to do it because your primary thing is everybody needs to be part of security because it's a mental thing as well as training. And then everyone has their primary field of expertise and then learn at least a secondary, tertiary field so that you can you can support. And that's one thing the American military guys do well, is they train so that they can work. If one person goes down, there's another person to fill the position. Okay? Not like, oh, well, our comms guy is down. No one knows how to work the radio. No, they all know how to do med. You have a medic, but they all know how to do med.
Yeah. Anyway.
But I like the movie.
Yeah, it was not a bad movie.
I mean, I've watched movies that were made in the last huge budget movies last year and the year before, that it's supposedly an action movie and all that. At the end of it, you're like, it was a whole bunch of
There's nothing
fluff.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be it's pushing all the ideology of the times, but it has no substance to it.
That's it, yeah.
This had a bit of substance and stuff, and it had a lesson behind it that they're trying to get across. But it's to be seen if they do anything with the storyline. Yeah.
So, obviously, this is our first time attempting to do a movie review. I hope everybody enjoyed it. We've already spoken about now the Book of Eli you want to do, and the one that I want to do, the most popular prepper post-apocalyptic movie that's out there, according to a lot of the forums and stuff, is a movie called The Road with Viggo Mortensen.
I haven't watched it.
I started watching it the other day. It is dark.
Just don't ask me to do the way Walking Dead. I can't.
So, yeah, the Road is definitely not a movie you can watch with your kids around.
Okay.
But yeah, we will.
Is that a prepper style?
It's post-apocalyptic.
Okay.
But yeah, I haven't got enough deep into it I haven't done too much research on it. I've watched the first 20 minutes of it so far, but it's dark and gritty.
Okay.
But it's very much something's happened and it's 10 years down the line.
Okay.
Where this was different is that which I liked about this one, is that something has happened, and this is the immediate after effects.
Yeah, it's the birth of the whole system.
So, yeah, dude, thank you very much for that. And see you next week.
Yes. What are we doing next week?
I've got no idea. We'll get there.
Working.
Yeah.
Well, have a wonderful evening.
Okay, you too.
Thanks. Cheers.
Okay, cheers.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Off-Grid Survival. For more info and updates, feel free to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Off-Grid Survival ZA. That's it for now. We will see you next time. And always remember, be prepared. Off-Grid Survival is a member of the South African Podcasters Guild. The views expressed on this podcast are those of the speakers and may not reflect OGS Media or the Guild's views. We aim for accuracy but cannot guarantee it. Please verify information independently. Consult professionals before acting on any advice given during these episodes. By listening, you acknowledge that we are not responsible for any damages resulting from reliance on our content. All content is provided without warranty.